I just want to start this video off with letting you guys know that I hope you watch all the video to try and get an idea of every single thing you need to know and understand when transitioning between arm and wrist aiming. But if not, after this little bit of audio clip, I'm going to leave another screen with timestamps of all the points I make in the video. What's going on, guys? I'm just making this video in regards to transitioning from wrist aiming to arm aiming. And the reason why I'm creating this video is because I am a wrist aimer. I've probably spent 8 years of my life only wrist aiming, and only yesterday have I decided to transition to arm aiming in an attempt to better my player and to give my wrist a bit of a break from the abuse that I usually get. You can watch so many videos online on the tips and tricks when it comes to arm aiming and the difference between arm and wrist aiming, and I probably spent a few hours researching it myself, but nothing out there really shows you what exactly it is you need to do. Coming from a wrist player myself, I was able to learn by myself, individually, the steps it takes in order to transition from the two, and what you need to do as a wrist player, and there's bad habits you need to break. In most comment sections, you'll see the same thing, and it'll be very standard advice of lower your DPI and jump into a game and just try and feel it out. Now, I'm just going to tell you straight up that's wrong. Okay, if you're a wrist aimer and you do this, you're going to end up feeling frustrated, overworked, and it's just not going to work for you. And it's going to be very hard to transition if you always feel useless when it comes to that. Definitely not the way to do it. The number one step I recommend immediately is to download Aimlabs if you don't have it already. Aimlabs is a free program on Steam, which I can show you now. It's called Aimlabs, just here. It's a free program on Steam that you can download, and it'll teach you it'll find your weak points, your strengths, and it'll give you a bunch of different programs it recommends in order to help you transition from wrist to arm aiming. Now, it doesn't actually help with just the transition. It's a program in general to help with aim overall. But when it came to me for transitioning, it was probably the best thing that I could use because it was something that you could jump straight into and shoot right off the bat. Now, I'm personally an R6 player myself, and I found that doing T-Hunt over and over again could be a frustrating experience because you didn't really get to feel where your flick points were and where you were aiming at, and just an overall, it wasn't as easy as it is in a program designed specifically only for aim. So I'm going to jump right into Aimlabs real quick, and I'm going to show you what it's like. So I'm going to go back. So I was just doing grid shots. So I've only just started, I started probably yesterday doing arm aiming, and I've gotten to about, I can get around 70,000 at best. I think 72,000 score was my max on grid shot. I don't know where the scores are on these because right now my speed is probably the best thing I'm at, but it's my lowest score, so I'm not really sure how that works. We're just going to ignore that. So here's my suggested task. I'm not sure if it varies from player to player, but I'm pretty sure it does. You've got your training days here, so it's got how many days you've trained and how much you've trained in a row. So you've got your high. So far I've trained yesterday and today high. So I spent quite a few hours on this already trying to figure out the difference. I'm going to go straight into grid shot and show you my progression within a single day. So this is a single day from switching to wrist to arm aiming. I'm going to show you exactly how far I've come in such a short period of time to hopes that you can learn exactly what I've done to make this work for you. So I'm going to probably try not to talk, because I'm probably going to overly focus on this. I'm not going to try as hard as I can. I'm just going to jump straight into it and give an average score at best. I'm not trying to blow anything out of the water or anything. So I'm just going to put this score in. That is just an average score for me right now. That is not me doing my best, unfortunately. I did not break any records by that means. And by no means am I saying that I am a good player. I just want to demonstrate that that is only after one afternoon of practice. So only since yesterday afternoon have I transitioned to arm aiming, and that's the point in which I'm at already. Now, you might blow that out of the waters in comparison to me personally, and that's great. I really hope you do. The only reason I'm making this video is so people like me can have a bit more advice with the transition as well. So now we've got that out of the way, I'm going to go on and transition. I'm going to stop the video right now, and in the top bottom right corner I'll have a smaller video of you'll probably see it right now, of my mouse moving. So the mouse in which I've displayed in front of me right now is the glorious O. Now, I only got this mouse yesterday, and that is the reason why I decided to transition to arm aiming, was because I didn't really want to refund this mouse because I actually quite like it a lot, but I found that my wrist aiming was severely impacted by this mouse. So my normal mouse right now was a G403, and I also had a G402. Now, the G403 is a good mouse. It is much lighter, it is a little bit smaller in your hands, and it doesn't really look like a gaming mouse, but it is. I would severely recommend this over a G402. Now, with these kinds of mouses, you have a little lip here. Now, with the glorious O, it's a flat mouse. So when I would normally play, I'd have my bottom left, my thumb, you got that skin bit here. When I moved, I would have it slightly touching the mouse pad. Now, if I was to do the same thing with this, you can't really see, but the mouse actually lifts up and rolls over that little bit of fat. Now, that is a direct issue with how I aim with my wrist and how I hold my mouse. So not only have I had to change how I hold my mouse, so now I do a more claw movement, I've also got rid of wrist aiming in general. Now, I want to say that you want to find a perfect balance between wrist aiming and arm aiming. You don't want to throw wrist aiming out the window in general. Your wrist aiming should be dedicated to your micro movements, so that's small adjustments you need to make when in a room. Now, transitioning between the two is quite a hard thing to do, and it's not something you're going to learn immediately, because I can tell you I haven't. I've barely got the hold of it. When you're arm aiming, you want to transition, so what I do is I drop my wrist when I want to make a micro movement, and I simply start to wrist aim again. So this is when I'm just slightly starting to alter my aim within a room if I flick to someone and it's slightly off. Anyway, let's just get right on to the proper way to hold a mouse for arm aiming, because this is hard to find. Now, when it comes to arm aiming, you have what's called your pivot point. And your pivot point is where on your arm you want your movement to be. Now, some people can have it on their elbow, if that's what they like. I don't like it. I'm not sure if people do that. It's really a crazy thing to do. Some people will have it all the way about half up their forearm on the edge of their desk. I don't like that either. Some people will have their mouse pad off it. It's really personal preference in which you like. Personally, what I found the easiest is about the point right here. I let this point of my arm sit at the edge of my desk, and I use that point to move my mouse, whether it be up or down or right or left, and you get a little bit of skin give to pull down or pull right or pull left. So you've got that when you want to pull away. The second thing I want to talk about is how to hold the mouse, because this is a big thing as a wrist player. Personally, I'd have almost my entire hands rubbing on the mouse. Now, maybe not all your wrist players do this, but to the ones that do, like me, don't. It's going to severely affect your aim. It's going to affect how you flick. It's going to affect your muscle memory. And overall, it's just a really bad habit to have, I've learned. I've noticed that significantly my accuracy within aiming has increased when I keep all of my wrist off the mouse pad completely. I have what's known as a contact point, and that's how I remember how I hold the mouse, because it's only just transitioning. So I hold in a claw position. This point here, I call it the contact point. It's hard to see, but I rest the bottom of my pinky finger, my pinky finger against the mouse. And that's how I know that I'm holding it in the correct position. Now, when I hold the mouse, I used to have my finger lying like this, so my hand would be rubbing on the desk when I moved. It's more of a lazy posture. You can still do it, But now I definitely go out of my way to have zero contact with my wrist, thumbs, anywhere on my hand. You do not want that on contact with your mouse pad, because it's just going to make it a world of hurt, and it's going to discourage you immediately. So now we've talked about how to hold your mouse and where to position your arm with aiming. Now there isn't really much more to go into than this, but not many people tell you that in the first place, so I hope that's actually helped you. I'd recommend finding what you find to be your best pivot point as your arm, and also finding how you like to hold your mouse. If you like to have it rubbing on the mouse pad and it works for you, sure, do it. But for me personally, I find it to be terrible, and I feel like for most people it would be far better to always have it off. Just remember when you do this, it's not an easy transition. It does take a while. It's difficult. It really is. You know, you might have thousands of hours in a certain game, and now you're switching to a completely different aim style. So you're going to feel not as good as you once were. And again, as I've said a million times before, it's discouraging. And this is where wrist players really struggle to make that transition, is that they can't, they find that they're doing such a worse job and they can't seem to get better, they just give up. The last tip I have for you guys is when you're transitioning from wrist to arm, you'll find yourself arm aiming, but also moving your wrist like this at the same time. That's a no. If you do that, your muscle memory will not work. You're doing two different muscles, so you're working this muscle memory and you're working your wrist muscle memory at the same time. Overall, it's just not a good idea. You really want to focus on making sure your wrist doesn't move. If your wrist starts moving and you start doing stuff like this without making micro movements, just flicking the things, you're going to have a bad time. Now, personally, I find grid shot to be the easiest thing to learn your initial arm movements. So I'd 100% recommend this task first. If you want to do another one, I'm not good with switch tracking, so I don't do it. But motion shot's another great one. Spider shot is another great one. And one of my favorites is also the super shot. Now, another thing that you find really different with arm aiming is your overall how you move around a room. When it comes to wrist aiming, your sensitivity is so high that only a slight movement of your wrist you can completely turn and navigate a hallway. That is another thing that's extremely hard to get used to, is that you're not doing just little wrist movements anymore, you're moving your whole mouse just to turn. And that's big. And it's annoying to do it in game for the first time. So that's why I recommend Spider Shot 180, because that'll train you to flick back and flick forward and overall just imitate your movements within a game. And one of the other things I like to talk about is your sensitivity. Try not to alter your sensitivity all the time, because as you do that, if you're switching constantly in between the two, you're going to mess up your muscle memory. If you find a sensitivity point in which you like, stick with it. Don't try something else. Everything's different for every person. What a pro player might work for them will not always work for you. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize, that they'll try and copy how a pro player plays, and they'll find it to be frustrating. Do what works for you. Do your sensitivity in which works for you and stick with it. Once you've transitioned it, that's what you want to learn. You don't want to constantly be switching between the two, because it's going to mess up your muscle memory. And it's personally, I use, obviously Aimlabs allows you to pick a game and choose sensitivity to match the game. So on Rainbow I use 10-10-45 now. I transitioned from 14-14-45, which doesn't seem like much more, but it really is. It's a drastic difference. You're talking about a 40% increase in sensitivity there. So I still move my entire arm a little bit less than pro players do. Pro players play on around 8-8-48 or 8-8-45 is the average. It's not spread across the board, not everyone plays on that. Some pros play on really high sensitivity. That's just one of the average sensitivity points in Rainbow. There's also 400 at the same point. It's really, again, it's personal play style, whichever thing works for you. There's not much more else I can tell you besides follow the tips. I will leave a title screen at the end with a list of the tips that I've discussed within the video, so you can't forget it. You can take a photo of that, you can write it down just to remember. And all else I can say is to practice. And practice, practice, practice. That's what everyone says. But once you've got those points down, you'll learn that practicing is a much more rewarding task. And once you see yourself improving, it'll really make you want to progress further. Sure, for a few days you will not be able to play competitively like you used to, but it is a sacrifice I would recommend worth making. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope all you aimers learn to transition to ARM just like I'm currently doing, and I hope this video works for you and helps you compared with all the other garbage on YouTube. I'm sorry if I spoke too much or ranted too much. I just really wanted to cover all the points in which helped me personally, and I didn't want this video to be about anything about the channel. I solely made this video just to help other wrist player aims, because I thought it was so frustrating to not find anything online that really discussed how to hold it, how to rest your arm, the positions you want to be. And I think it's because arm aimers didn't ever really get to play with their wrists. They don't know the kind of habits we had and how we play. But now that I'm transitioning from the two, I'm someone that actually knows what works for me, and hopefully it works for you. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling, otherwise it's going to go on forever. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully I'll see some encouraging comments in the comment section about how this worked for you. If not, feel free to help out others. Anyway, you don't have to subscribe, you don't have to like the video, you don't have to do anything. This is simply to help you guys. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry for ranting. I'll catch you all later.